Motoring 2012 on TSN is brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.
Just outside of Carmel, California is Laguna Seca, without a doubt one of the iconic racetracks in the world. And of course, Corner 8 and 8A, best known as the Corkscrew. But this is a place for performance vehicles. But today, Lexus has booked the track. Yes, the same company that set the benchmark for comfort beginning with the LS400 many years ago. Well, today they're introducing the 2013 GS 350 and the 450 Hybrid. And Lexus is saying these cars represent a new chapter in the story of the company. That story is called, and you've heard this before, Waku Doki. And in a language that maybe the competition understands, it means heart-pumping adrenaline racing.
So what I think this car represents for Lexus is the pursuit of perfection is now turned into the pursuit of perception. That is what this company and this car represents for them.
It's a little bit of perception. It's also, I think once we get people into the car and they'll see the difference, they'll feel the difference. That's the biggest thing.
And they call it a halo car. You look at it, I mean, it doesn't look that much different. Halo cars are usually very exotic or very different.
People have come to see Lexus in terms of quality and reliability and overall advanced technology.
But underneath that skin, it is different, and it is a BMW 5 Series. The problem now is going to be for the company to convince 5 Series owners of that.
Now we're trying to inject a little more aggressive feel, passionate driving, Waku Doki, something that'll get their heart pumping.
I just went on the track with it, and I think that we drove the BMW 5 Series and a Mercedes E-Class and the new 350 rear-wheel drive, and it stands up with the 5 Series. But the big issue is going to be to convince people of that. Lexus has done a wonderful job of creating a luxury market, but now they're after performance, and that's going to take some time.
By being at this track, by being at Laguna Seca, we're trying to show that Lexus really has reached this new level of performance and passion in the brand. We want people to feel that when they get into our cars, and this track really exemplifies that level of passion that drivers are going to feel when they try this vehicle.
You know, the interior of this GS is exactly what you'd expect from a luxury vehicle. It's plush, it's comfortable. I mean, these seats must be half the price of the car. You can adjust them at least 18 different ways. And the LCD screen, well, apparently it's an industry first with 12.3 inches. Now, there's some good and bad news when it comes to the door. The good news is lots of room to get in and out. The bad news is just trying to reach the door.
Powertrain is a 3.5-liter V6 engine, 306 horsepower, very powerful direct injection engine, and then we have the hybrid version as well, which is the 3.5-liter V6, but runs on an Atkinson cycle engine. So a little more efficient, but added with the electric motors gives you 338 horsepower. It's been completely redesigned for the 2013 model year. A much cleaner but aggressive looking vehicle. A very interesting performance and handling characteristics that are much improved over the previous generation. So a much more spirited drive, much more focus on performance and handling and ride comfort. We're reinventing, so to speak, the Lexus brand. We're introducing a lot more passion into the brand, a lot more exhilarating driving experiences for customers.
You know, this new GS is all about handling. With that in mind, they've added something called LDH, Lexus Dynamic Handling. And guess what? It makes the car handle better. But they've added another twist to that, and it's called Dynamic Rear Steering.
We have what we call adaptive variable handling and steering options that basically adjust the amount of intervention and handling depending on what kind of drive the person has. So you have normal mode, sport mode, and sport S plus mode, depending on if you're doing aggressive driving or comfortable driving. Also, we have Lexus First dynamic rear steering, which will actually steer the rear wheels up to 2 degrees either way to improve handling on tough courses on the track, and also improve it when you're in town doing U-turns, different types of parking maneuvers. The quality and the advanced technology and the innovation that's always been part of Lexus still remains, but we're trying to introduce a little more passion and driving experience for the customers.
I've been out on the track, and I think it's such a nuance that I didn't feel it out there, really. Maybe I wasn't pushing the car hard enough, or just maybe it is such a computerized system that it is so good that you don't recognize it. But it's not something that visceral you feel.
We call it actually wakudoki, which is Japanese for heart pumping and adrenaline racing. And that's really the feeling we're trying to give customers when they get into our car and drive them. But we still have the advanced technology, the quality and the reliability that Lexus customers have come to expect from the brand.
Range anxiety with electric cars? That's nothing new. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
While many manufacturers have been languishing in the bed of boring design, Kia has been on a tear. On this edition of Test Drive, the Rio5. So why is Kia blooming? Ever since Peter Schreier took over as design boss, this once stylistic moribund company has progressed to the point where it now showcases some of the best looking cars around. The Soul changed the entry-level Ute look, the Sportage has been lauded for changing the face of the typical two-box SUV, and the Optima is arguably the best looking family sedan around. Now comes the Rio5. It's remarkable how far entry-level cars have come in terms of what you can get. In this Rio5, you can get the bare-bones car, or you can get a fully loaded one that includes full leather and a heated steering wheel. The one thing that really did impress me, this multimedia interface. You can control the phone and media by just talking to the car. For instance,
please say a command.
Sirius Channel 49.
Sirius Channel 49.
Now the music starts playing, and you've accomplished that without taking your hands off the wheel or your eyes off the road. It's more of the same beneath the sheet metal. At one time, buying something under $20,000 brought hand-me-down technology. What was once used by a more expensive sibling was passed down to the newbie the instant the R&D costs had been recouped. This is now a thing of the past. The Rio5 is powered by a 1.6-litre four-cylinder engine that features everything its more expensive rivals do. Direct injection, variable cam phasing and a variable intake. In this instant, it all conspires to produce 138 horsepower and 123 pound-feet of torque. This is enough to give the Rio a peppy attitude. When it comes to versatility, this Rio5 is very good. To begin with, it does have a much-needed rear wash wiper. On this car, there is a backup camera, and when you pop the tailgate, you'll find 15 cubic feet of space with the seats in the upright position and about 50 cubic feet with them folded flat. There is, however, a minor nit. They don't fold flush with the floor. Pair the engine's work ethic with a 6-speed automatic transmission with a manual mode, and the powertrain delivers plenty of pull off the line, a strong mid-range and decent response at the top end. No, I'm not talking blow your socks off rock and roll power, but for most eventualities the Rio satisfies driver demand. For the record, it runs to 100k in 10 seconds and accomplishes the more important 80 to 120 move in 7.3 seconds. All new cars now have electronic stability control as standard equipment. This Rio5, however, it takes things to the next level by using the electric power steering to turn the front wheels if something goes wrong. For instance, if the back end slides out, it'll turn the front wheels about 3 or 4 degrees into the skid. That helps the electronic stability control system keep the car pointed in the right direction. It's a rarity on most cars. It's unheard of at this price level. In the ride and handling department, the Rio5 again sits above all. No, it's not the suspension. In this regard, the Rio5 is a tad harsh, although the car did feature the sport suspension. In this case, it's the compression damping at the rear that leaves a little to be desired. However, the rest of it is first rate. The steering is very nicely weighted for an electrically assisted system, and it delivers delightful feel and feedback. This and that advanced electronic nanny deliver a car that is a welcome departure from the entry-level norm. So there you have it, an entry-level car that stands well above its price point. There's an old saying, perception lags reality. The perception is that Kia produces cheap rides. The reality, they are producing some segment-busting cars like this Rio5.
You know, there are two types of people on the road today that I don't like. I hope you're not one of them. I'll tell you who they are at motoringtv.com.
We are working about between 3 and 5, 6 years into the future, but also we always get the chance to work on some new concepts, like you see the GT concept here. It always gives us the chance to try out some new things, and sometimes these things see the daylight. Sometimes at the moment it's a dream, but you never know. You know that sometimes it works out.
So Toyota says that the so-called transformation of Lexus actually began with the CT200 hybrid, a vehicle I found underwhelming. However, they did sell, and they were pleased with 2,300 last year in 2011, and that's up 26%. Also, Lexus says that of all the cars they sell, 1 out of 5 is a hybrid. Mind you, 4 out of 5 aren't, but I digress. Now we've got the new GS 450 hybrid. It's at least $10,000 more than the entry-level GS. Its combined fuel economy, 6.4 liters per 100 kilometers. The non-hybrid is 9.1. Not a big difference. And although the hybrid is faster off the go simply because of the electric motor, it's 400 pounds heavier, and it has that electrical complicated hybrid system. So my question is, who's buying these things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, again, it's a car that's more, they might call it a flagship. I think that 1 out of 5 cars Lexus sells in Canada are hybrids, so they believe in it and they've had success. But I'm not sure in the big luxury sedan market that's the way to go.
But we're finding people who want the performance, the added performance that hybrids give, without actually compromising in terms of fuel usage or emissions of CO2. So you have this environmentally sophisticated customer who still wants the performance that they're expecting from a Lexus vehicle. This gives them the best of both worlds.
Our motoring tip of the week concerns checking your engine coolant. It's really important to check that engine coolant because that's the primary liquid that keeps the engine temperature under control. Now, you want to make sure that the engine's cool or cold when you check it. So if you've been driving the car, wait at least 1 hour after driving the car before you embark on checking this. There can be as much as 15 psi of pressure in the cooling system, and the coolant could be as much as 100 degrees Celsius or even a little bit higher in a hot summer's day if you've just been driving the car. So make sure it's fully cooled down before you embark on this. In many cases, you've got an opaque coolant reservoir, so often just shaking the vehicle will reveal the coolant level. You can see it sloshing around in there. Make sure that you've got the right coolant for your car. This vehicle requires long life coolant. It's an orange coolant. You can see the logo or label on the container. It's concentrated, so you want to cut it or mix it 50-50 with water when you put it in your cooling system. Make sure that every time you get your oil checked or changed, that you're checking coolant level. If you're seeing dripping on the ground, that's another prompt why you'd want to check that coolant level. Or if you're about to embark on a long highway trip, it's prudent to check oil, coolant, and all the other fluids that protect your engine. That's your motoring tip of the week.
We're here for the launch of Buick's new luxury compact sedan, the 2012 Buick Verano. Now, this car has been manufactured for this very much a niche market. So what is Buick's take on their newest car, and just how important is it for a brand that has been traditionally associated with your older buyer?
This is a big launch for us. Obviously, the compact market is very relevant in Canada, and there's certainly a position within the compact market for this vehicle being with its entry luxury characteristics. There are those people, whether they be empty nesters, whether they be young affluents that are just looking for a nicer car, but still in a compact package, excellent fuel economy, a great car for today, and a big, big significance for the Buick brand. The vehicle comes with just one engine powertrain combination for the time being. It is the 2.4-liter direct injection engine. It is an award-winning engine. It has excellent fuel economy when mated to the 6-speed automatic. It's getting 9.9 in the city and 6.2 on the highway. So, I mean, for customers that are looking for good fuel economy in a luxurious package, this is an excellent vehicle for them.
The Verano kicks out 180 horses and 171 pounds-feet of torque, which is more than adequate. and the 2013 model will come with the optional and very exciting 2-litre turbo version. There are 4 trim levels available, and at a staggering starting price of just $22,600, not even their crown jewel hits the $30,000 mark. Classic features still remain, like the waterfall chrome grille and vintage-inspired hood vents, but others were really quite unexpected. There is nothing compact about the amount of boot space, and a distinct lack of numb bum and a heated steering wheel were greatly appreciated on what was a really cold day. Their IntelliLink system, available on the top 3 trim levels, allows you to sync your smartphone through either Bluetooth or USB, and the 7-inch touchscreen display made all audio adjustments an easy task. Now, Buick claims that this Verano is the quietest car they've ever manufactured, and the way they managed to do that is through something called quiet tuning. What it is basically adding layers of acoustic insulation to various parts of the car that would normally allow noise to filter through into the cabin. Now, it's very difficult to demonstrate this on camera, but take my word for it, this kind of level of quietness to be driving in is something you'd normally find in a car that's easily double its price tag.
The person who chooses this car will probably be influenced by the fact that it's as quiet as it is. So it's not a sporty car. It's not a car where you want to just rip through the up to the red line all the time. Although I did actually on the way here on one occasion. It's quite responsive. But again, it's a comfortable car. It's a Buick, and it's not quite the Buick that my father would have liked, but he was a traditional Buick buyer.
This car obviously will still attract the existing Buick buyer. For those that are older in retirement age who are looking for a slightly more compact car, but still, have the sort of the luxury feel to it, as well as we're looking at young affluents, 30 and 40-year-olds, people that are looking for something a little bit different, maybe a different brand than they traditionally bought or would have considered before. But as I said, this is a true luxury car that we didn't make any compromises in the development.
I think it certainly may not be as visually appealing as, say, the Elantra is, but it's going in that direction. And I think that's really important for Buick because it's been known as an old person's car, somebody like me, and I think it's really important. They've got to do that to be able to get the younger people into, and at least looking at it, at least comparing it, and that wouldn't have happened if they didn't have this vehicle.
You'd be very hard pushed to find a car under $30,000 that actually comes with this many features and comforts. Now, having said that, I do have 2 pet peeves. The first has to do with the fact that it is a compact sedan, and as a result, the visibility out that back window isn't great, so a backup camera should be made available. The other has to do with the amount of space in the 2 back seats. Now, if you ever travel with 4 passengers that are anywhere near the 6-foot mark region, the 2 in the back might find it a bit of a tight squeeze. Now, overall, Buick, with them redesigning their cars with Generation X in mind, I think this 2012 Buick Verano is definitely a step in the right direction.
Closed captioning of Motoring 2012 is brought to you by
Greener, fuel efficient, global. This is Chevrolet Now, driving our world forward.
Car companies are showing increasing interest in building vehicles powered by natural gas. Now, this makes a certain amount of sense. Canada particularly has a lot of natural gas, and it has a lot of advantages as an automotive fuel. It's nothing new. I mean, Brad remembers driving a natural gas-powered Chrysler minivan about 10 years ago, and his main memory of that thing was driving home one night, the old fuel gauge was drifting pretty close to empty, and he couldn't find a place to refill the thing. Talk about range anxiety, it's as bad as an electric. But the problem is, you've got a fuel that technologically can work, but how do you generate a demand for it? Well, if the price of gasoline starts rising, and in the States it's now almost $5 a gallon. Well, boo-hoo, that's what we've been paying for 20 years. But if that creates a kind of critical mass of demand, then maybe the manufacturers will start building the vehicles. But then the customer has to ask, as Brad did, where do I get the thing refilled? Because Shell recently closed down a bunch of natural gas filling stations in Canada because there was nobody buying the fuel. So how do we break through this particular thing? Well, there's one place where natural gas can work if you've got a private fleet, maybe at taxis or local transport trucks or something like that, you can have a refilling station right in your depot. The vehicles have a defined range of travel per day. They can refill overnight, and that works. There was a company just west of Toronto making something called PHILL, P-H-I-L-L, I forget what it stands for, but it was basically a system that tapped off your natural gas system in your home and allowed you to refuel your vehicle overnight, not unlike plugging in an electric car. But that company went bankrupt back in 2009. They've resurrected themselves, so maybe there's some possibilities there. But you have a real three-cornered issue to deal with. Manufacturers aren't going to build the vehicles unless there's demand for them. Customers aren't going to demand them unless the price of gasoline is high enough to encourage them to do so. And they're not going to buy them unless they can find a place to fill the vehicle up. Now, you can't expect the oil companies to spend hundreds of millions of dollars installing these refilling stations if there's no demand. You can't expect the car makers to build them if the customers aren't going to buy them. You can't expect the customers to buy them unless everything else comes together. How do we break this logjam? Geez, do we have to get the government involved? We know where that ends up. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Lexus is hoping the new GS will appeal to two groups made up of mostly men. The first group, loyal customers age 55 to 65. The second group, new buyers age 45 to 55. Well, the new GS 350 is certainly a step up from the predecessor. As for the 450 hybrid, great vehicle, but you know me and hybrids. I respect the technology, but hey, you got enough bells and whistles in that 350 to keep you happy for a long time. And remember, with some of these hybrids, especially the one in the 450, if it goes down, you cannot limp home on the gasoline engine. Food for thought. Before we go, make sure you check us out at motoringtv.com and join us on Facebook for the total motoring experience. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
It really isn't quite a complete vehicle. It looks good from almost every view, but the direct side view of the vehicle is where you really see the poise and stance of the car, and I think that's probably its best view.
Motoring 2012 on TSN has been brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.